And we're live. Hey people, how are you doing? Welcome to episode 265. My God, 265 of the Sports Therapy Association podcast. My name is Matt Phillips, creator of RunChatLive.com. And as always, this episode is being recorded live on the Sports Therapy Association YouTube channel and Facebook on normally a Tuesday night, but if my memory serves me right, it's a Wednesday. Yes, today's a Wednesday. Normally a Tuesday, but it does change now and again, depending how our guests best accommodate our guests. So, last week, as some of you might know, I don't like to say everybody, because if you didn't make it to Therapy Expo, that's fine. I mean, there's reasons why you could have benefited from being there, but I don't like encouraging this kind of FOMO thing. But it was Therapy Expo, which is the UK's largest multidisciplinary event for professionals dedicated to preventing, treating and rehabilitating musculoskeletal and neurological conditions. End of quote. And as always, the STA's been there since the beginning, since 2013. So we packed our bags. That's why there wasn't an episode last week. And in this episode, called Reflections on Therapy Expo 2025. I'm going to be shortly joined by my special guest and good friend Mike James, aka the Endurance Physio, for a catch-up. We've both been speakers, theatre hosts, members of the Therapy Expo Advisory Board, and therefore we've seen the pleasure of seeing Therapy Expo evolve from what started as a room full of attendees in Manchester back in 2013 to, as I say, becoming the UK's largest event, multidisciplinary event, with about 2,000 delegates or more, 100 speakers, 150 CPD sessions, or hours of CPD sessions, and 150 plus exhibitors as well. Huge in the NEC Birmingham. And if you haven't been there, then maybe it's not for everybody. But you know what? As well, say again later on, and Mike just confirmed with me, it's £49 for next year. 49 quid if you buy it in December. So I'm officially not going to have any pity for people saying, oh no, I can't afford it, it's too expensive. It's £49 now. I know I get about 2,000 downloads, so I'm expecting to see at least 1,900 of you at Therapy Expo next November, whenever it is. So, but if you're still not convinced and £49 still seems like a little bit of a steep bargain, steep kind of expenditure for you, then Mike and I are now going to take a look at this year's highs and lows and everything in between. And chat about what the future could or maybe should hold for Therapy Expo. So let's bring up the man himself for the hour, the Endurance Physio, Mike James. Hey, Mike.
Good evening. Hello, everybody.
Hello, everybody. Actually, just reminded me there are people watching this, so that's great. You have to do that now and again. Let's have a look in the comments. If you do decide to... Oh, Rachel Francis Thompson's here. Fantastic. That's very nice of you to join us, Rachel. If you listen to the podcast and you want to join us live and ask the guests questions and just hang out and network, then I can bring your comments and questions up onto the screen. For example, Rachel Francis Thompson, who a lot of you will have seen at Therapy Expo last week, is here with us. And Rachel says, hi Matt, great to see you last week, and great to see you as well. Rachel, really was. You seem to have the theatre there, the practical theatre there, totally under control. You did an amazing job, and your talks as well, so good to see you. Gary's here as well, founder of the STA. Gary says, good evening, all looking forward to this episode. We see the expo from a different perspective to the delegates. It's a good point. Everybody probably sees it different, but we definitely, both myself and Mike and Gary obviously, have seen it evolve. And we've probably got a little bit more of content to examine when we kind of judge it. Cecily Hislop is here as well from Hands on Hub and the ST School. Hey, Cecily. Cecily says, evening, my lovelies. Sarah Jones is here as well. Hey, Sarah, how are you doing? Says, evening. So thank you, everybody. If you have joined us live and you want to ask questions, then really just put them into the chat and we'll bring them up. Also just share any reflections you've got on Therapy Expo. I've collated a few emails, which I thank people for sending them to me. Quite a common theme, a little bit of confirmation bias, I think, because you knew it was sending it to me, but I'll read them out a little bit later on. But first of all, let's go back to Mike. Mike James, how often have you been there now? Do you keep a tally? Do you know?
Do you know what I was thinking today? I think that might be my double digit this year. I think that might be number 10. I think that might be the decade today.
Congratulations. You don't look old enough to have been anywhere for 10 years in a row.
I don't know whether you get some fancy badge for that or what,
but... does it feel like 10 years? Or I mean, I said before, it's changed, hasn't it? Let's go with what we've seen it gone from and to.
Yeah, I think my first time was literally paying my money and going through the door and sitting there in the seats, listening to people that I thought were wonderful leaders of the industry and the profession, and trying to never actually thinking, oh, I wonder what I need to do to get to that position, or just enjoying the show as it was. And then things evolve and stuff. But think so much has changed, but similarly, so much hasn't as well.
That's interesting. That's a bit of a hook. What hasn't
No,
changed then?
no, I think, the networking, the catching up with people, the developing relationships with people. I guess in some ways, controversially, the good, the bad, and the ugly are still there. Have we changed the balance slightly? Absolutely. There's way more good. There's far less ugly than there once was there as far as the things and that reflects, I think, what's changed in the industry around our modern understanding of healthcare. Those things weren't going to change overnight. And I think we all need to appreciate sometimes, certainly perhaps our insight from being behind the curtain, so to speak, compared to some delegates, is we do appreciate that it's a business. It's a business that's there with a sole purpose that runs aside trying to give the best CPD and learning experience to the delegates. But there is a threshold for the old expo or therapy show, as it's now going to be called, to exist and continue to exist. So I think the balance between changing the good, bad, and the ugly and still satisfying that need is something that's worked well, and probably more so in the last couple of iterations than perhaps the first.
Yeah, I like the way you mentioned that. And one of the advantages of getting old, is I recognise that as well, is some people go there and so if they're not into the exhibitors and you think, oh, the exhibitors are just taking the mick, it's not enough education for us, too many exhibitors. But if you've got 2,000 people and the size of that place, you've got to fund it somehow. You could talk about the content of the exhibitors and what they're selling and stuff, maybe, and their attitude, but the idea of it not having less exhibitors doesn't work. Because if you want all those speakers, all those theatres, all the coffee and everything, and then it's got to be paid for. So it's nice to hear you kind of mention that again. Yeah, it's working together, which I think makes it successful.
I think so. And we saw a change in the type of exhibitors this year. I think I chatted to Gary within the first morning before it had even started, and the obvious omissions this year: no rock tape summit. The movement summit with rock tape was effective. I think I don't think I'm wrong reflecting back. I think I probably almost went to the first couple for those type of things. They were what I associated with the Therapy Expo. The STA have developed the Update Theatre, which was such a draw for most people. I was lucky enough to speak there a couple of years ago. The Hands-on Hub in recent years, to not see these things that have become established parts, but then the people are still there and the themes are still there and the good knowledge and information is still there. But we did see a migration of some things that perhaps we've associated with it in less positive ways. And then seeing some, there was certainly some top tier worldwide type exhibitors this year, which may once have caused a stir in our world of, are they really the type of people we want there? But I thought the balance this year was better between the impact. The difficulty sometimes, particularly in our forum here, is that maybe some of those exhibitors are pitched more for the big multidisciplinary, multi-team practices that have a bigger budget to afford, or bigger space and bigger access for some of those pieces of equipment that, for many of us, they become interesting to see and interesting to upskill our knowledge about, but perhaps have less of a practical use to take away and benefit from.
Yeah, good summary, makes sense. Talking of the exhibitors, Vernon Smead, who's the business development manager, I think that's the right title for Therapy Expo, is in here tonight just to check what we're saying. Good to see you, Vernon.
Spy in the
good so far. No, good to see you, Vernon. It's really nice. Well, I'm sure we'll go over this a few times later on. One of the things I saw this year, maybe it's because, like you say, the STA Theatre wasn't there and the Hands-on Hub Theatre wasn't there. So two things which I'm very much involved in, and obviously host the STA Theatre. I managed to actually look at it more from a delegate's position and try and have those chats and walk around. And I really thoroughly enjoyed it. I've managed to give me a totally different view. And I think that's why STA and Hands-on Hub both pulled out this year in the sense of we were still there. We just wanted to kind of sometimes you've got to move a little bit out of the woods, having to see what's going on. And I loved it. I thought it was it allowed me to see a lot more. And I really picked up on a lot of collaboration. I really did. I had a chance to walk around and actually sit down and talk to people from the industry. We had, at one point at the STA stand, we had Susan Finley came up, Ruth Duncan was there. I was hugging Jing round the corner. And it's like all these players who have been around for years, but for this year, I think it seemed like there were some walls had definitely gone down. And I like to think, although it's difficult to tell, for yourself and me, who have probably tried to make that a goal over the years, that we have played a small part in that. I don't know how big, it's impossible to measure, but do you get the sense that, because you've been going on for years about trying to make things more evidence informed, particularly with running and endurance athletes and stuff, do you manage to actually stand back and go, okay, I've played a part in this. There's a kind of, things are getting better and I was part of that.
I'd like to think so. I think certainly been in the advisory board for the last 3 years, I think it is, to feel that we have a voice and that voice is listened to and acted on. I think there was from the team, Molly, Liam, Charlotte, all of them over the years, it's a huge amount of trust they put in us to take on some of the things we suggested. We may not have got everything we suggested, but for them to trust us with some of that program and content design and understand that, okay, maybe they understand that the sort of the battlefield a little bit better than us, that's appreciated massively from myself, and certainly feels that it inspires me to continue to do that. And I think that tangible thing may not be as evident to some, but most people seem to feel that, that collaboration, some of those barriers have gone down, that certainly the eclectic nature of who we're getting speaking. I got some ideas. I'm going to go back to them this year with the next iteration and how we can evolve it more. But I definitely see from you, similar to yourself, the little nods of the head and the little hellos, how are you, feel more genuine sometimes. There's definitely, I think, there's an appreciation that, barring maybe a couple over the years, most people there have the best intentions of helping people in the way that they feel they can help people, and none of that is a negative. And maybe we might not align perfectly with certain thoughts of each other or the things we do, but everybody's trying to do the right thing for the right people. And that should be something. And I like the therapy show with this new mantra of trying to celebrate our industry and our sector seems to be generating that feel already.
Yeah, that is exciting. It's interesting. I was chatting with Charlotte and Molly about that. And yeah, I'm the same as you. I mean, it takes quite a lot to, that's a lie actually. But I was inspired. I found it like, okay, something's clicking here. Very excited about what's going to happen next year now. But I think I needed to step out from the craziness of hosting the theatre 2 days in a row and finding all the speakers and introducing them all and then checking. I needed to step out of that to really appreciate what was going on there. So let us know, people listening, how you felt it. I know that we did receive, I'm not going to read them all out, but there was a big message, well, quite a few messages noticing the absence of the STA Theatre and the Hands-On Hub, which it was. People said there was less practical stuff going on there. There was less visual stuff of people on couches and different kind of hands-on stuff going on, which I think probably, but I think that's something which they took on board. You were chatting earlier, weren't you? I think it was noticed that there was a little bit of an absence of practical stuff. So what did they say to you about that?
The new centralised practical theatre, I think, worked really well. I know that originally Molly's idea was more of an amphitheatre type approach, and I think that's something that will try to be evolved. Once you start taking away things, it's going to be different, whatever. I certainly, the couple of times I nipped out of Theatre B and had a look, they were jam-packed, 5 deep as always, and I've heard nothing but good feedback for it. Charlotte messaged me that it was the best attended expo to date. Cool. And they felt that the conference program was right. What they thinking about next year was that acknowledgement that more practical content is their top priority. And then through us and the advisory board, that they'll be looking for ideas to try and grow that. And I've certainly got some thoughts to take to them, which are generally my personal thoughts, but I don't think would probably be a million miles away from most people's thoughts. I certainly think that we can, the thing, and I appreciate this is probably the toughest thing to change on the conference program. My biggest thing I'd like is longer sessions. I think sometimes we scratch the surface of some really useless. Some of the talks, we all squeeze our talks in appropriately for what we've got. But I think
say that. So most of us do, don't they?
Most of us do, yeah. But
Anna-Marie?
I think,
oh, sorry,
Anna-Marie. Anyway, the line of the expo was from her. When her countdown clock in my theatre said 5 minutes to go, she publicly announced, clock must be wrong. It can't be 5 minutes to go. And that was the 5 minutes of question time. She'd already gone over her
Anna
time.
Maria's going to be on next week, and it'll be a special 90-minute extended show because, yeah. So I interrupted you.
I think an option for something longer, should it fit the plan, would be good. So you can delve into some of the nuance of stuff. Or even just open that up to a little bit of discussion, a little bit of Q&A. I'm always conscious as chair of Theatre B that I always want to let one more question go live, but we're shuffling people off to the stage so we can funnel people through, and that has to happen, obviously. But the other thing I was thinking, which might work well sometimes, is the sort of symbiotic sessions almost. So, for example, let's say we had someone on stage giving a theoretical-based talk in one of the theatres around some treatment, some assessment techniques, whatever it would be. At some point in the conference program later on, that same person transfers to the practical arena and then demonstrates the practical application of some of the things they've already talked about. You could take them both as standalone sessions, but tied together, you get a much better learning from that thing. The other thing I'd like to see with it is more, and this is the tipping point, I think, for everything we've always talked about around collaboration and not sort of competition. I'd love to see more interdisciplinary therapy talks. I know there was one this year that went down really well in the MSK Theatre where they had a patient journey that was following different professionals' inputs at different stages. I'd love us to maybe do, here's a case study, here's a patient. This is what my physio lens would think of with this. This is what my sports therapy hat would think of here. Maybe a radiographer would come in and chat about something, and there'll be nuance to the individual professions, but the big take home will probably be we're all probably doing the same thing, thinking the same thing, and we're all okay with it. So those type of things I think would be nice evolutions. How they would work, how they would live, I don't know yet. But I do like that thought. Debates, discussions, those things would be really cool. Because what I found this year, particularly some of the I set off my speakers and I quickly run out to see something and come back in quickly before they finish. There definitely seemed to be on the practical theatre more of a, here's some options I could do with someone rather than this is the only technique I would ever use with someone. There's options and sort of principles rather than actual things that people would do explicitly. And that's all people should really want to leave with is principles and theories.
Yeah, 3 great points. Rachel Francis Thompson, thanks for adding this. Rachel Francis Thompson says, agree with what you're both saying. The practical skills stage was super busy. I've suggested a more theatre style setup so I could get involved and join in. I also asked for longer sessions, Mike. Yeah, the session length is so tricky, isn't it? But I don't care how long, well, no, I do. What I think really needs to be sorted out is, fitting in a good 10 minutes of questions. But it's tricky, isn't it? Because we've both hosted these theatres, and sometimes if you do that, you say, haven't got any questions, and there are none, and people are kind of silenced. So I think also there needs to be a little bit of training of the audience just to make them realise that don't go rushing off to your next one. Don't pack your bag up. If you're coming to this one, the learning experience for you is going to be sticking around and asking some questions and not worrying about it. That whole kind of creation of a safe place, non-judgmental, because that's where the magic happens, isn't it? When you do ask that question or someone else asks the question you were thinking. So
in the sports medicine world, something that I've been attending a lot, which I always think is brilliant, and this is a big jump for us if we bring this in, but it's the fireside chat type of sessions. So we have a panel of speakers or one expert, and they don't do a talk; they do a question and answer session. They're on stage and you just go in and, right, I've had this type of patient. What would you suggest I do with these? And, how do you find you manage this type of scenario? And if, what I think has always been the issue with time of sessions is to get enough different people with enough content to attract delegates to come. But if you suddenly have an hour session and there's 3 to 4 people on that panel and session, either working collaboratively with a presentation or doing a Q&A practical session, that should still mean that we don't dilute the experience of opportunity and difference of speakers and skill sets, but we offer longer, more thorough sessions with people.
Yeah, it's a good idea. I did sit down on that MSK one with the 3 people going through the patient experience, and it was great. I think I think it was definitely an hour. It could even be an hour and a half. I think it might be an hour and a half. But it was, for me personally, it was lovely because they had time for questions, for interruptions. There was different people speaking out. It felt kind of much more, I don't know, because it was the MSK Theatre. People were more willing to ask questions. We've still got some work to do, I think, with helping non-allied health professionals recognise that their opinion is valid, and sometimes they're even more valid than maybe the physio or in the room or something. You've got to speak out. It's a whole different set of skills which are valuable. So cool, good, right. So what I'm going to do, because we could rattle on for ages about this, I'm going to bring up some of the speakers. I haven't put all of them down, so apologies if I'm going to include anybody in Theatre B who wasn't there, but I'm keen to hear your thoughts on some of these, and also just to illustrate for people who haven't been to Therapy Expo what sort of content. Obviously, just to make it clear, I think there's 3 theatres, isn't it? Yeah, 3 theatres. And then you've also got the MSK Theatre. You've also got a couple of external theatres as well outside. So there's loads going on. This is just Theatre B because Mike was chairing it. And we'll have a look at some of the content on there just to give people an idea of the sort of thing Therapy Expo can offer. It's just a drop, but hopefully it'll help you. So this was you chairing it. Very well chaired, by the way. Very tricky, making speakers go and people go out. You did a grand job of doing that. Let's have a little look then. So this was Talk of the Devil. This was Always Stick to Time, Anna Maria Mazzieri, director of the ST School. And it was called Off the Map, the Shoulder That the Brain No Longer Knows. Understanding the Impact of Cortical Disruptions for Shoulder Pain Management. Synopsis. You've got a history with Anna Maria as well, and we all love her to bits. That opened the show up. How did that go? Was the content something interesting? Do you think people were engaged? Was it?
It was. I think, like, if regardless of topic, regardless of clinical nature of the first talk, you want someone who grabs everyone, gets the passion going, gets the sort of motivation up. But there's no one better than that. You know, she went full Italian. The hands started going. The words started coming out even more sort of Italian in nature. But ultimately, what seeped through on this one was that she's very passionate about helping people and helping people help people. And I thought it set the tone really nicely on day one for us all to start realizing that for the management of some everyday conditions that we see, even someone with such a strong background in hands-on therapy is deep diving into the other things that affect these things, these neurophysiological aspects that just triggered some of our sort of thinking. And with Anna starting her PhD and some of the places she's going to go, definitely one I was putting a little scribble next to going, she needs to come back and talk about the next bit of this when she's got that next bit to discuss. But I thought it was a lovely way to set the scene straight off and get the ball rolling with, you know, think outside the box, think about other things, see the person rather than the condition or the body part. And it started us really nicely, apart from putting us about an hour behind by 10:30.
The same thing happened to me at the Exmouth, at the recent STA and Hands on Hub. I had Women's Collective on there with Anna Maria, and it was a fantastic, amazing conversation about women's health and raising awareness of gender bias and all sorts of stuff. And there's a stage with 5 of them on there. Michelle Lyons was up there as well. So was Siobhan Donovan. And I had like a timer, which eventually I just put on the stage opposite them to let them know. And Anna was just looking at me, nudging somebody else, just laughing, going, look at this one. Thinks he's going to stop us with a timer on the stage. Yeah, and they overshot kind of 20 minutes. But I don't know. I think it's...
She always makes me... She's the reluctant karaoke saying, no, I don't want to go up. I don't like this. I'm not good at it. And then she gets on stage and goes full Beyonce on you for about 5 minutes. And like, oh, okay. Thought you weren't comfortable with that.
Yeah, just a little song. Ness and Dormer. Here we go. Yeah. Yeah, it's crazy. No, it's a good way. It's good. I don't know whether it's programmed that way, but it's a good way to start it off and get people kind of thinking outside the box, like you say. Anna Maria is going to be on, excuse me, next week to elaborate on a question she asked after one of the talks on what should sports therapists diagnose? She only had about 6 seconds to answer, but we're going to have her next week so she can have an hour to answer that question or to feed her, allow her to answer what she was going to be talking about. So that'll be next week, maybe Tuesday. We've still got to check with her. Right, so then we had Paul Coker, who's been there from the beginning. He was probably on the rock tape in 2013, wasn't he? I didn't get to see that one. Same kind of thing, neurosensory integration and looking outside the box.
Yeah, if it's almost like it's planned. that we continued Anna Maria's theme with another, a guy who can't help but inspire you to think differently. He comes on in his enigmatic way where he's very understated but so powerful in the message that he puts across. And whatever variation on a theme that you hear Paul talk about, it always just makes you go, God, you know what? I just don't think enough about that. And just happened to then, really one thing that I loved from Theatre B this year was there was far more audience integration and participation, and he had them doing his usual sort of brain and eye sort of tricks to get them all going and everything. Yeah, everybody was dizzy by the end. But just I think with Paul, he's found that sweet spot of just he can pitch a talk that will get you if you've never heard his stuff before, and will just subtly reinforce the stuff if you have heard it before, with never sounding the same. Just, okay, yeah, he's pitched that another way again, but I still get what he's saying, and I need to go away and consolidate it.
That's great. You've got such a nice way of summarising these great speakers who've been in the industry for so long and helping listeners understand. And it is very much, particularly with these two, but I think a lot of the speakers, some people argue that what's the point of going to the Therapy Expo and taking 2 days off work because I can just get this information online. There'll be a free download somewhere, but it's being in the presence of some of these speakers, isn't it? It's what you can learn from being in the same room, from asking questions, from having to get up in that moment to do the exercises. And that's what you pay for. That's what the ticket's for. It's not just the information, it's being there and being integrated. So
and they're the most humble, down-to-earth people as well. Yourself included, more than anyone. There's no airs and graces with these people. They're legends of the industry, but they're the most humble, normal people you'll ever meet.
And that's really useful to see as well. I think that's really useful for a clinician or a therapist to realise that, we're not all gurus sitting on a box somewhere. We're just normal people who've just been doing it maybe a bit longer, or, fallen into different kind of stood on different shoulders of giants, and so that's really important.
We've just made more mistakes and are making less mistakes now. It's nothing more than that.
That's a good way of looking at it. Right, this is really, I'm hoping listeners are enjoying this. Don't forget, if you're listening to this, people, live, then do ask some questions or share your own experiences. It's not all about what we thought. I want to hear what you thought. And if you're listening to the podcast and you went along and you want to make a comment, then my recommendation would be to go to YouTube and put the comment on there, because it's got a great shelf life. And we will get back to you if you leave a comment on the YouTube recording. I didn't see this one, but I did see the video which you put after us at the end of the day, and you seemed quite blown away by this. You really enjoyed it. This was Julia Gova?
Yeah.
Community pain.
It's more, the message I was putting out more was around flipping pain.
Yeah.
Flipping pain, if people aren't aware of it, is an initiative that comes around from Australia with Laura Mosley, etc., around helping the general public and the public understanding of managing persistent pain. And they do some really novel things, lots of bike rides and information sort of tours around it. And obviously it's come over to the UK, and we've got some brilliant people driving it forward. So the talk was informative and interesting around managing pain without pills. But it was definitely the fact that we were able to get that message out to those who don't. And I'd reiterate what I said on that video online afterwards. If you do nothing else from this talk, please go off and investigate flipping pain and how you could get involved. And there's lots of literature and educational stuff that you can then use and share amongst people that you may think need it, whether that be therapists or patients. But lovely to see these people and this sort of initiative now hitting the main platforms and being able to share it potentially to people who don't work with persistent pain patients as a primary care. But we will all benefit from understanding this more.
I think also it's a good example. I'm not sure if they've been to Therapy Expo before. You chatted with them. Have they been before? Was that the first time they've talked?
They might have talked in the MSK Theatre last year.
Did they? Oh, okay.
Maybe. I'm not 100%, but I think they might have been there. I think they've probably integrated into the show via those channels.
That's good. So that's a double bonus then. That's really nice to see. I did feel that it was much easier to move in between the two, and they were coming out to see. There
was a migration from some of those into ours this year, which was only a good thing.
That's good, because one of the feedback from last year we got was, the same speakers, you've got to get some new speakers. And I think they did make an effort this year. They've obviously some familiar faces who are very good at updating the information and changing it and producing something new, like Anna Maria and like Paul Coker. But it's nice to see other people who hopefully not everybody recognised or has a chance to see yet. So yeah, flipping pain. That was good. This was an important one, which yeah, it was so cool. Is in Theatre B. I wish the other one had been in Theatre B, but we'll talk about that later on. Theatre B was on fire on this day one. It was amazing. This was really a very important historical, without going over the top, joining of Gary Benson, founder of the STA, and then also Dr. Christopher Holland, who's the Society of Sports Therapists, and Sarah Catlow, who is, let me just move that a second. She was on behalf of the STA, wasn't she?
Yes.
Yes.
The STO.
So the STA, yeah. So for people who aren't aware, and for people who are talking about regulation and standardization, and these were three big stakeholders who probably for 15 years have never been in the same room together, probably more talking behind each other's backs across the board, and lack of trust, and which means obviously collaboration is very tricky. So this was one of the things which was really important, I think, set the scene for Therapy Expo this year, these three getting on stage, and like Mike said before, showing at the end of it that we've got more in common than different, and we're all just looking for the benefit of our clients. So it was really cool to see, and they were talking about what does it mean to be a sports therapist, which was really interesting because, you know, one of the things, for example, Gary champions is you don't have to be a graduate to be a sports therapist. There's plenty of people who go down different channels where you learn it. Maybe you can't go to university. Maybe it doesn't suit you. Maybe more mature students and older people who find it as a vocation. And also the idea that sometimes what you learn in life, it prepares you very well for looking after people, funnily enough, rather than somebody who might have gone to university for 3 years in a row, but they're still, without any disrespect, 2021 and haven't probably suffered enough. Most of people, I'm not judging everyone, but you do get a lot through life when you're trying to help others. So having those three people on stage together was really monumentous, and I'm glad that you got to chair it, Mike. Was it big for you?
No, so I didn't chair it. We had
not chair it, but you're in the room.
I was in it. I was enjoying it. Yeah, that was. Yeah. I've been really lucky. Last 3-4 years since I've chaired Theatre B, I've had a jam-packed sort of list, and I've always been really sort of proud of the theatre. I'm probably going to go back and ask them to call it Theatre B, because Theatre B into the Coliseum, because of the amount of gladiators we get in there. And potentially there was a lot of attention on this one in case it became very gladiatorial and everything, which thankfully it didn't. But this, I think you have to have been in the industry quite a long time to realise just how impactful this was. I had conversations in my time back with SIF Health and Sports Injury Fix, and even 5, 6, 7 years ago, this felt a million miles away. And nothing was massively achieved other than appreciating that each of them, guarding their own stance on it, had passion and enthusiasm for supporting their own beliefs, and were able now to listen to other people's, whether they agreed or not. This is more about the seeds it's planted and where this could go and what could happen with it. All I was sitting at the back thinking was, do you know what? If I was a sports therapist of whatever denomination, I would be so proud of my profession right now that we're able to do this, because there's silos within the physio world and they don't speak. There's silos within the physio world that don't even acknowledge each other without any history. It's just that they believe their way is the only way and they're in their ivory towers. So I think this is the seeds of maybe something that may or may not become really great and develop more than this or not. But again, it's the foundation, not only for the sports therapy world, but what else can we tap into this? Can we do something similar with the massage world? Can we do something with sports rehab or whatever other world we're looking at, where, a manual therapy versus a non-manual therapy type approach? Is this somewhere we can bring people of different opinions together to either see if there's common ground or just to understand each other's difference of opinion? Yeah,
that's definitely, it was monumentous. And it's true, people haven't been in the industry for that long or as long, probably didn't realise it, but it really was a stepping stone. And obviously all the conversations which pursued after that, because now people come to the stand and it's all the conversations behind the scene and the ideas we've got on the podcast to get people who, in all honesty, we've invited, and Gary will verify this, we have invited people in the past to come on the show, and it's just been not the right time, not the right place, and sometimes we didn't get a response. But I'm sure, I really am putting my money on 2026 being a true year of collaboration. Yeah, it's not going to be a massive sudden fixed. But there's going to be a lot more collaboration, I think, in 2026, which can only help the industry. So very exciting. A few comments from people in the live who joined us live. Sarah Jones says, I agree with everything you've both said. Thank you. I really enjoyed the chance to be there this year without working and zero stress. It's true, totally different for us. It's so nice to network and catch up with other therapists too. Yeah, that's one of the, again, that's what you pay the money for. And that's the entry ticket. That's what it's not so much the entry ticket anymore. We have to realise it's the taking the time off work. The entry ticket they can put down to £49, but people need persuading that it's worth not having a day of clinic or 2 days of clinic and the travel up there. So however cheap the ticket is, we appreciate it's going to cost you a few £100 to take the day off work and travel up, especially if you're there for 2 days. But you know what? When you're calculating your CPD expenditure for the year, what you get out of meeting other therapists and sharing and bringing problems to the table and walking away realizing everyone's got the same problem and maybe even some solutions, it's gold. It really is worth it.
I think as well, we're in a world now through this type of forum, through social media, we're so aware of more people that we've never physically met. And there was dozens of people that I only had a chance to quick wave or say hello to, but there are people I never had the chance to say that to before, or spend 5 minutes in their actual time. And those little things are priceless sometimes.
Really is. I made a point because I've got really bad facial recognition and I'm taller as well, and I'm in my own little world half the time. So that's why I put it out on social media. It's like if it looks like I've walked past you and haven't said anything, then I'm not ignoring you. Probably just kind of tap me on the shoulder or pull me. But also I made a promise to myself, particularly on day 2, that if I thought I recognised someone, then I would say, "Don't I know you?" And that can be really difficult for a lot of people. But I did it. And you know what? Yeah, I think 3 times it was famously someone who went, "No, I've never met you before in my life." But you have to take the risk. Oh, okay. I said, "Sorry, maybe it's one of those faces." And I walked on. And definitely after the first time, no big deal. I prefer that than the chance of just walking past someone where it could have been an amazing chat. And just because I might be embarrassed that I don't remember them or something. And even names as well. Like there is this thing with the badges. I can't remember who said it. They got to get badges which are a little bit higher up on the shoulder or something. Because this idea, especially if it's a female kind of with the badge there and you're just staring down at their breasts, kind of surreptitiously trying to do it. It's so important just to have the confidence to look at the name. So what I ended up doing was I ended up taking just photos of female therapist breasts, or their badge anyway, just so when I got back I had like a little catalogue of all the people I met and their names, and that's my way of remembering them. But yeah, it's I'm hoping if I can do it, believe me, anyone can do it. Just have the confidence to talk to each other. Really important. Jessica Janneman. Jessica, it was lovely to see you there as well. You surprised me because Jessica was a perfect example who's been on the show before. And Jessica, I've only ever seen kind of like this in a square, just a face. And also hair all tied up, looking very therapist. And that was, well, actually, they press ganged me. There was 3 of them with the Jing contingency. I was like, oh my God, 3 of them looking at me. And I haven't got a clue who any of these 3 are, what's going on. And then I realised bit by bit who it was. And it was Jessica. And I was like, I felt so stupid not recognising you, Jessica. But then once we got over that initial embarrassment, it was so lovely. We had a hug, and now I recognise you forever. So thank you. You were one of the people who I really just thought, oh, I'm not sure if I know you. But anyway, Jessica says, everything felt a lot calmer to me this year, which could have been my state of mind, but it felt much less packed and easier to float around, chat and explore, which I really appreciated. Okay, that's cool. I can relate to that. I think there was a lot of that going on. I thought it was just me not having STA theatre under my belt, but maybe there was just a vibe of kind of calmness and I don't know.
I think, well, we nudged the start time back of the first talk, so there wasn't that clamour and panic to get into your first session because the trains had been late or parking had been a nightmare. And similarly, it just felt that from that point on, it just flowed a little bit smoother.
Yeah, it's good. Again, I like to think if it's things we put into place to help create that, then that's wonderful, because that's what the advisory panel is all about. Jessica says, it's my fault. I should have tied my hair up. No, your hair looked great down, Jessica. Please don't ever change that. Don't just, but just it's me. It's not you. It was me. How many times have you heard that? Sarah Jones says she loves the idea of a multidisciplinary approach too. We need more of this. It's true. It's so cool. If anything, particularly in the non-allied health professionals world, there is this imposter syndrome and this kind of almost ashamed of your title and that, which isn't warranted, because there's an awful lot of allied health professionals who value what we do. And then on the other hand, there's a lot of allied health professionals who think that we're all still dinosaurs trying to kind of improve circulation and break down kind of deep scar tissue, when a lot of us are not doing that anymore. We've moved on. So the more we can spend time in the same room and just realize, shit, we're actually on the same sort of page or in the same chapter, then that's what conferences like this should really try and do. So I like your idea, Mike, of more multidisciplinary talks. That'd be really cool. How are we going to make it happen?
Just keep banging the door.
Should there be because this is one thing that I think Liam, who's coming back, we're looking forward to, although I really hope Molly is still massively involved. But I think one of the questions Liam put to me on the day was, should theatres be named? Should we have like a multidisciplinary theatre or a rehab theatre rather than theatre A, B and C? Can you see any pros and cons of that? I think it's an idea that's been tossed around a few times around the advisory board, but
it is. We talked not for this conference, for last year, 2024, we chatted about when we started to put that sort of flow through the program around, if you were following themes like rehab, exercise rehab, hands-on type of stuff, whether they all lived in the same theatre. And then it became more of a focal point for that particular topic. And I think ultimately we came to the conclusion of it would pigeonhole people into places and lose the integration and the mingling and the moving around. It would all be siloed at the point. But I certainly think, I understand that would also eliminate the problem of queuing up to get back in and go in different places, etc. But I think it works as it is now. People can see on the itinerary what themes are where and when they can go to, and there'll always be those people where 5 minutes, 10 minutes for the end, they're running out because they want to get to somewhere else, and it's fine. People coming in late because they've been somewhere else. I don't think we'll ever be able to have enough separation or overlap where there's a break somewhere and you can run to the next one. I think it's probably going to dilute it a little bit too much, but we could certainly have maybe segments of a theatre. For the next 90 minutes, 2 hours, we're going to be focusing on this, and everybody involved is going to be chatting about that particular thing.
It's a nice idea. Right, let's go through a few more of these slides. This guy here, Matt Phillips, I heard he tried to get everyone in the whole theatre talking to each other. How did that work?
Yeah, it was a low point to the expert. I know. Do you know what, Matt? I think you did something that in my 10 years I've never seen done before. I actually think you had the crowd talking more than you did, which is such an innovative, when you think that the message you were giving is about communication and about understanding and listening and talking, then it was perfect, because you shouldn't have been the one doing all the talking. You should have been encouraging people. And actually, as you said yourself, again, going on the theme of having longer, the only problem with your talk is you were stopping some bloody brilliant conversations going on because you needed to pull them back in to move on to the next bit. And some of them were proper engaged with, complete strangers. And and I literally stood, the beauty for myself during the talks is I normally stand at the back with the audiovisual guys. So everything's in front of me. I'm like the goalkeeper with the whole pitch in front. And I'm watching people like so engaged. And I literally, it sounds a bit corny and cheesy, but I'm watching some of these conversations going, cool, I'd love to be treated by you. Because the way your body language, the way you're engaging, the way your listening skills are, it was perfect. It was perfect. So I think, again, a shameless pitch, but like if you've got more time and you really want to go deeper down this, then get on Matt's course, please. Because this as a snapshot to an audience, and you never pitched your course once, I have to say. It was no sales pitch whatsoever. But
that was a mistake. Yeah, they should.
Yeah. But all of the things that you do in a tiny little window were on show there, and wasn't, this isn't like, oh, I'm Matt Phillips, I've reached this point in my career and this is what I've said. This was you. This was your evolution. This is you going through your journey and going, this is me now. This is how I think we should be. And I wish it had been recorded, that one, and I wish it had recorded the audience, because the conversations that were going on, and it was fantastic. It was really good. It was everything that we should have at conferences these days.
Good. I'm pleased. I'm glad it was a gamble, because traditionally people do go along to these events and with the idea of keeping quiet, writing things down, listening to the information, trying to get as much as possible, and then running on to the next one. So it was a bit of a gamble, but it did pay off, because everybody was laughing, smiling, meeting each other.
Yeah, and again, take the word runners out. If you want to learn to work with runners, perfect. It's a brilliant course for you. But this was completely agnostic. This was how to work with people. And this was out to communicate with people and everything else. So, and the title says, and anyone else for that matter, but don't pigeonhole it in your minds, people, that it's a runner's course, because it's not. It's absolutely not.
Good. I'm glad that worked, and I'm glad you were in there to give that feedback. Really appreciate it.
Did I mention everything you sent me on that email?
That's fine. Yeah, that's great on that email. That's great. That's good work. Professional. We couldn't finish day one without mentioning the magnificent Michelle Lyons. Yeah, lovely. What can you say about Michelle in a few words?
Just an absolute powerhouse in the women's health space, who is enigmatic and captivating, and inspires trust. And just, I think, regardless of where you work, whether you're a male, whether you're a female, you listen to someone like Michelle and just go, there's an expert that I need to tap into more. I think I've normally tried to drop her an email with a question after most talks I've heard her say, oh, can I, is there a reference for that or somewhere else? Because it's definitely something that she's so knowledgeable on. And like all of the best ones, it's put down to the rest of us in such an easy, simple to understand, applicable way. We're not lost in some of the the nuance isn't there. It's very relevant to all of us. Cool. There's a couple of, there wasn't a bad talk on day one, if I'm honest, or day two. Chris Norris, as always, comes in and shares, decades worth of experience about simplicity. We had, I tell you who's underrated, or it's underrated as far as attendance. Theatre B, kindly, for the last couple of years, has always been sponsored by Balins.
Yes.
And they host their own session, which I don't introduce or chair, where David comes in himself and we'll do Q&A stuff. And he did one on day two particularly, which was around dealing with complaints and conflict and how would you handle unhappy patients. And the first one was about some of the liability stuff. They're absolute pearls. The things that you need to go and talk or ring them about and get these answers for. I'm not saying that the people attending them were the ones who are dealing with these issues now and wanted that input. I just think it probably slipped under the radar a little bit. As far as they generously sponsor the theatre, and I'd encourage people, if they are back next year, to definitely try and get to some of those talks if you can, because it's access to an area of the industry that you don't normally get that access to. And then the final one I wanted to mention on day one was one which I think was probably a little bit too soon. So we had James Barber from the Altitude Centre chatting about hypoxic training and altitude training to accelerate healing and return to play. It's one of those things that I think we're starting to become aware of. But as with most things in our industry, it needs a bit of a groundswell before the majority sort of go, I need to pay attention to this. So it was a brilliant talk, something I think we all should be going, okay, let's keep an eye on this and where it goes. Maybe he'd be a good one to come back in a couple of years when I think perhaps we're more ready to take that on and listen to it. But fantastic bit of research that they're doing themselves and applying themselves to really help people try to, it was generally pitched at the sort of higher performing athlete side of it. But very, very interesting talk, that one.
I want to do a month on wearables and technology, that sort of stuff. So maybe we could, chat and maybe get him in to talk about that. I know we're going to have Stanley Sports in, Gary Palmer in, and a few other companies. Sometimes there's stuff out there which, like you say, is not affordable at the moment for every single clinician on the shop floor, but it's just they're very involved in research, aren't they? And it's stuff of the future. That's this is how it works. Stuff that's good to be aware of.
Things now are becoming, one of the big innovations with these things is they're becoming affordable and practical for perhaps the rest of us to start thinking of using. They might not quite be there yet, but whereas some of the things, in the same way you think of some of the strength testing, the force plates, the biomechanical stuff, 10 years ago, we'd have gone to somewhere like Therapy Expo and gone, just out of my league, that stuff. But now we're starting to get to the point that I don't think it's long until these things will be relevant for us all to think of using.
It's true. It's a good point. Yeah, good point. I want to fast forward to day two. I'm not going to go through everybody on day two, so it's nothing personal. I'm just keen to hear about, you had a talk there, which was the 5-minute gait analysis screen, high impact, low tech, immediately useful. You've done loads of talks and presentations all around the world, but especially at Therapy Expo. How did that go for you as a speaker?
I enjoyed it. I think the likes of us who've done lots of talks there now probably have finally dialed into the pitch of the talk that's relevant for the mixed audience we have. So whereas a lot of the exhibitors and other things may be looking high end and high tech and things that might be out of some people's practical reach right now, everything I've tried to do in the last few years is, okay, what can you take away tomorrow and use with the very next person you see that costs you nothing? How can you use the existing skills you have better or reframe the way you think things rather than needing to upskill or get new skills? So that's all this was. It was me introducing a sort of framework of thinking when it comes to assessing biomechanics, whether that is walking gait, running gait, old people, young people, sportsmen. And hopefully it just gave enough takeaways for people to do that. It's definitely something I'd be happy to do for the STA in full, or record that and make it free and accessible for you guys if it's something people would like to listen to. But my issue has always been practicing what I preach and keeping it in the time. I had a vision of everybody from day one stood with watches at the back, keeping an eye on me. But I have the advantage of buying myself a bit of time by introducing myself very quickly.
Clever.
And not reading out the full bio and just hitting the ground running. But feels like it went okay. Nobody's complained. So hopefully it landed well.
Oh no, you're always a massively popular speaker. That was great. We get nothing but good feedback for you. And also it's exciting while I'm thinking of it, you're finally getting all your stuff on YouTube, aren't you? Tell us about that.
That's the plan, yeah. I didn't realize how much it was, but I always my journey on social media was complete accidental. I came out of clinic one day about 8-9 years ago and went, I've said the same thing 10 times to 10 different people. I'm going to record a video, sling it on Facebook. That was the big thing back in the day, and just send the link to my patients. And it just snowballed from there. And all of a sudden, I find myself 9-10 years later with probably 400 odd hours of video production, which are some athlete facing, some therapist facing, some everybody facing. And right now, I think if you were to try, and I get lots of contacts from people going, you did a post a while ago about such and such, I can't find it. Because I've always just posted them directly to the social media platforms. So something I want to do is tidy it all up. So I've always had a YouTube channel. Generally, it's gone under the radar because it's where I post my recorded webinars as links to the people who come on my webinars. So I'm going to spend some time over the coming months now trying to pull them into one place as a repository with a little bit more organization and easier to find. And then that should hopefully make things a bit easier for everybody and myself.
Very exciting. That'd be great. There's a load of content, isn't there? If people want to find your YouTube channel as quickly as possible, they just put the Endurance Physio.
Yeah,
Is that into
nothing
YouTube?
Complicated at the Endurance Physio. And it's
Fantastic.
all up there. Not a lot on it yet, but it's all ramping up in the next couple of months.
That's really exciting. That's great. And YouTube does have so much of a shelf life. That's one of the lies of Facebook, unfortunately. Well, not lies, but once it's on Facebook, it's so difficult to find again. It doesn't appear in any search results. So something for therapists out there to think about with your own marketing. Google and YouTube, same thing. So everything on YouTube will appear in the Google search results. Much better place if you want your stuff to have shelf life.
And we've started to, the business side of it, I think, is something over the years at Therapy Expo we've sort of copped a bit of criticism for, that it's sort of, a little bit of pinstripey suited selling, pay me this much money and I'll fix your marketing type of talks. And we've started now to twist that. We had Dan Lawrence here this year chatting about how he's built his YouTube channel. There was nothing there other than gold dust around, this is what I did, you could do it as well. This is the pros, these are the cons. Have a go yourself type of thing. And people leaving it going, well, that could be for me, that might not be for me, but it's not going to cost me anything, and I'm not signing up or signing my clinic away to get access to some of this stuff. So hopefully we'll be able to understand that, and this was something Charlotte was saying to me today, that they understand that as well as being clinicians who want to learn and upskill and be better at practicing what we preach with patients, most of us are small business owners in whatever regard we hold our business lives. And therefore having that practical information that's accessible at the show to help people develop their business in a simple way is gold dust as well. So that'll be dripping into the program hopefully as well next year.
Fantastic. Very exciting. Last thing, I won't worry about that. There was another talk with, again, just marking the moving together of people. Should a sports therapist diagnose? We'll talk about that a bit more next week, because that's what Anna Maria Mazzieri is going to come in and talk about, because it really kind of started a conversation which we wanted to. Both of us had exactly the same questions for the panel, but it was just one of those things where time has gone. But so we're going to approach that next week. I just wanted to mention your podcast again. Fantastic fountain of information into the second episode now. It's had a great response with the wonderful Rosie Sexton. How's that going down?
Brill. This is the scratch, the itch, that I needed to scratch. So over the years, I've been involved with multiple podcasts, but been in a bit of hiatus for a couple of years. And Rosie and I have been chatting about lots of things offline for many, many months, and went, you know what, we should just record this. And we're going to be pitching it to therapists, pitching it to athletes, but simple, practical stuff. And we've actually, on episode 2, chatted about diagnosis, how important it is to us as professionals, the things we do well and not so well at doing it, how important it is to the patients, whether they get it or not. Something I mention on it, which always does make me laugh, is think of a terraced house. You've got a garden right now with a fence, 2 gardens in the back with a big fence in the middle. And on one side of this fence, you've got all these professions who are non-diagnostic arguing about how much they want to be diagnostic. And then you jump the fence into the other one where everyone's technically diagnosticians going, it's probably not that important. We don't need to worry about this too much. We should just be helping people get better. And if only we would all peep over that fence a little bit more and realise perhaps there's somewhere right in the middle here that sometimes this is important. Most of the times it's probably not. I mentioned in the podcast my thoughts around just a working diagnosis and nothing more, and how we communicate that to our patients and why that's the important bit. But it does make me laugh. Those who diagnose are trying to stop diagnosing and come away from it, and those who don't are desperate to get there, and probably not the big deal that we think it is most of the time.
That's a great point. And you guys explain that really well on the show. You even talk about having your boiler fixed recently as a hook for someone to listen to. But it was great. And you mentioned, helping people, therapists and students understand how to be confidently unconfident, which I thought was a great kind of way of putting it. But yeah, people should catch up with that. And you two, it's a great, your 2 personalities and the way you explain things together is really good. It's really working well. Rosie's lovely. So, I mean, it's really nice to hear both of you together coming out with common sense, but put in a way that's not preaching or anything. It's just like 2 friends chatting and just dropping great gold kind of dust of great information. So I'm glad. It's a good one to come out. Whoever thought the podcasts were over, you suddenly come along and produce this, and it's like, okay.
Yeah, and if you're anyone who works with fight sports or wants to work with fight sports, that's going to be the next one. We're going to tap into Rosie's wealth of knowledge. For those who don't know, Rosie is literally the first female UFC fighter from the UK. So, such a privilege to have her knowledge and experience. So we'll chat all about what you need to do to be better at working with fighters. And if you want to be a fighter, things you should think of doing to get into the sport. So one from your background, Matt, which I'm sure you'll find interesting.
Yeah, no, brilliant. And who better to say it than Rosie? It's incredible. Such a great person to talk to. And so mild and yet so deadly. It's just brilliant. Such a great combination. Yeah, I'm excited about that. That's going to be really cool. Brilliant. Right. And also Rosie is going to be part of, in January, I don't think I've announced this yet, but in January, we're going to do a whole month on neurodivergency, both as being a healthcare provider who is neurodivergent and also working with patients and clients who are neurodivergent. Rosie's going to be sharing some of her own personal experiences and advice on that, along with about 7 other professionals who have been kind of talking about it and putting it together. So that's going to be the whole of January. So if anybody is listening and is neurodivergent or wants to work better with neurodivergent clients and patients, and that's going to be a whole month of it, which I think is very topical at the moment. And I've got some amazing speakers. Some of you will be familiar already with people like Bonnie Southgate and with references to the connections between hypermobility and neurodivergency. And also Jessica, who's in here tonight, is going to be on talking about Ehlers-Danlos syndrome and also the connection with that and neurodivergency. So yeah, it's going to be great month, so looking forward to that, and Rosie's going to form a massive part of that. So right, we're coming to the end. If people want to stay in touch with the Mike James on social media, then we're talking about Instagram, _endurance_physio, Mike James on Facebook, the Endurance PT, Do you still use Twitter at all, or formerly known
So I'm
as?
still on Twitter. That's the
Bit on
Endurance
there?
PT. It's Endurance Physio on Facebook. But
Yeah.
I'm still clinging on to Twitter. I don't mind it, to be honest. I've worked out how to manage it and ignore the matrix when I need to, and it's okay.
I'm sorry. So on Twitter, it's the Endurance PT, and on Facebook, it's the Endurance Physio.
Yeah.
Is that right? Oh, right. I had that written down wrong then. Must have been following some other guy, of which there are. We have to be careful with that, don't we? It must really frustrate you. The same as, just to mention that the name of the podcast, the Everyday Athlete Podcast, as Mike announces at the beginning, there are other ones. There's imitations out there, but go for this title. This is the one. It's green. If you listen to the podcast, it's got a green background, and you've got Rosie and Mike there on the cover. So, right. So, thanks, people. It is 9:01, so we're going to bring this to an end. Thanks to everyone who joined us live. I don't think I've missed out any questions or comments, so really appreciate that. If you listen to the podcast and you do want to join us live, then like I say, all you got to do is come along to YouTube or Facebook, normally on a Tuesday at 8 o'clock. Follow either myself at Run Chat Live or the Sports Therapy Association, which is UK_STA. Was it STA_UK? I'm having a total moment now. UK_STA, pretty sure it is. Gary's going to kill me for that. But anyway, follow us on social media and keep up to date. Best thing is to subscribe to the YouTube channel, and then you'll get notifications whenever a show does go live or is about to go live. It will give you some notifications for that. If you're interested in becoming an STA member, then there's still a code, which is podcast25, and that'll give you 3 months extra if you join for a single year. So at the moment, that's still 75 quid. For an annual membership, which is ridiculously low, but Gary just won't have it any different. And if you use the code podcast25, you'll get 15 months instead of 12. Just valid for new members. And if you're level 3 and qualified after 2014, then make sure you opt for the associate member when you join up. Next week, like I say, I think it's going to be on Tuesday. We're going to have Anna Maria Mazzieri in here to, again, talk about a little bit of Therapy Expo, but more importantly, the topic of diagnosis and whether we should be chasing it, whether we've got the idea wrong of the significance of a diagnosis, and also some of the issues with chasing diagnosis. That's what we're going to be talking about. So thanks again to Mike James, the Endurance Physio. Thanks so much, mate, giving your time.
My pleasure. Remember, the Therapy Show will be back next year. Dates are announced.
Show, yeah, well done.
26th of November. And right through December, the tickets are just £49. So never been a better time to treat yourself to a Christmas present.
So true. £49 if you listen to this. I know, obviously, I don't know who you are because podcasts don't really help that, but I know there's a couple of thousand downloads. If you are thinking and umming and ahhing about Therapy Expo, which you kind of should be after this episode, then now's the time to do it. It will go up. It does go up to about 129, even more. But now's the time to just do it, put it away, and then that's it, done. Yeah, I'm trying to think. I like to say that these events aren't for everybody, but I'm struggling to find out somebody who's in healthcare, particularly if you're a soft tissue therapist, who won't benefit from going along. Yeah, you will. So do it. Right, that's it. Thanks, everyone. Thanks again for joining us live. Hopefully, we will see some of you again next week. But until then, take care of yourselves and take care of each other. Bye-bye.